to deliberate on the aforesaid matter. That is, of course, the matter of making sure that they get a majority in the House and a minority. And of course, looking forward to making a final decision on the same. But the rival politicians both maintain that their political affiliations really reigned and, of course, held it supreme in the House in terms of having more numbers and sway of parliamentary proceedings. And this is the standoff that lies ahead of the National Assembly. Away from it, we have seen the Senate getting its house in order and ready for business. Just what way forward, National Assembly? This is what we'll be looking at this morning, as well as we decipher on other matters, looking at that reckless statement by the son of Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, Uganda's president, as well looking at the conversation of the GMO ban lift that is still on in the country, and even better, looking at the question of the competency-based curriculum, just to get to understand whether we are on course, and as the task force team has been set to as well look into that, to see to it whether indeed as a country we got the right way in terms of fixing our education sector or not. This is what we'll be looking at. It's a pleasure to have you this morning. Thank you so much for creating time to be with us. My name is Linda Alela and this is Morning Cafe. Karibu sana. Let's get it started by taking a look at what the papers detail this morning, the Standard newspaper, as well as the People Daily and the Daily Nation, and later on to loop in the gentleman that will help us decipher the same. Also, yesterday was Animals Day, and it's important that we have a conversation as pertaining to how best we can take care of our animals. Later on the broadcast, we'll be having specialists in this very sector to tell us what we have done so far in terms of the protection of our animals, of course, domestic, as well as those ones that are wild. So, karibu sana, let's get it going. The Standard newspaper speaks of deadlock in Ruto-Raila power battle, which is the majority party or coalition. That is the elephant in the room that even Speaker Wetangula needed time to deliberate on. Of course, it has the Kenya Kwanza and Azimio leaders who made their cases in the National Assembly. This is captured on page 6, or on the front page, and expounded on page 6 of the Standard newspaper is exactly what we'll be looking at. Definitely also what I have mentioned as to the tweeting general stars Nairobi-Kampala ties, a story captured on page 4, the utterances of the son of Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, and somehow the dad has gone to tame these utterances of Muhoozi, and so we'll be looking to see what way forward and whether these are threats or these are utterances that shouldn't be taken lightly by the people of Kenya. Also, opinion split on Cabinet's GMO ban. This also a story captured on page 8 and 9. And experts are divided on a decision to lift ban on genetically modified organisms, and some have lauded the move while others urged caution. We'll be looking at the same as we continue. And so to succeed, address the parts, the story captured on page 14 and 15, just articulating how important it is for someone to look good. Also, when you step into an interview, the first thing, definitely 80% of that is how you addressed, how you presented yourself, and the rest 20 is then on the things that you will articulate. Those are the key stories that have been captured on the front page of the Standard newspaper. The Daily Nation on this other side, Wetangula to rule on House majority fight. This is captured right here. The coalitions in terms of numbers, as well as the parties they are in. Kenya Kwanza, Azimio on the other side, and equally speaking of the other parties that are in these main parties or in these main formations, the likes of ODM and others are actually shifting allegiance to join the Kenya Kwanza side, which is actually the main bone of contention as they speak of whether then they should be curtailed to their freedom of association. The issue Speaker Moses Wetangula has to rule on is members of parliament are divided on who between President William Ruto and Azimio leader Raila Odinga has the majority. That is of elected members of parliament. Azimio claims outright majority and rejects the defection of 9 members of parliament. That is from UDM, UPIA and MDG to the Ruto camp. A story captured on page 4 of the Daily Nation. We'll look at that as well. I've told you, Museveni moves to tame wild son. Definitely a conversation that we'll have right here, and of course get to hear the view of the gentlemen, or the views of the gentlemen that we'll be having on set this morning. Those are the key stories as captured on the front page of the Daily Nation. Let's briefly take a look at what the back has in store. Kenya Power to add about 55,000 meters to self-reading plan. The company is hoping to use this service to cut down on billing errors due to estimation. This is a story that has been captured there as well. Number of Kenya Power customers on postpaid billing, about 2.1 million, and 6.8 million number of Kenya Power customers on the prepaid tariff, and about 145,000 those ones of postpaid customers currently on the self-reading service. And this conversation will definitely get to have as the company is hoping to use this service to cut down on billing errors due to estimation, and Kenyans have been complaining also of the high prices of power, electricity, so to speak, in the country, hoping that indeed the coming government will make the necessary adjustments to make it affordable for the people of Kenya. Mr. Director, do we have the People Daily? All right, on my end, I think I do. And on this 5th day of October, the People Daily speaks of Museveni's son promoted after outburst. And Muhoozi is now a full military general just hours after tweeting that he can capture Nairobi in 2 weeks. Perhaps a move to tame him on these utterances that would otherwise cause some diplomatic teeth. Now, how well do your teachers score on the special day or on their special day? And this on the question of education. The transformation of education begins with teachers. Now Equity Bank joins the world in celebrating tutors who have given their all to make the future of young people bright. A story captured on page 13, 14 and 15. And indeed we celebrate what it is that our teachers have done in our lives. They continue to do in the lives of our children and those ones of course, the future generation. Definitely they are instrumental as pertaining to this. And clock ticks for CBK Governor Patrick Njoroge is staring at a possibility of an early exit from central bank over claims he is not supportive of President Ruto's economic policies amid accusations of using social media to hit at Rigathi Gachagua. A story captured on page 4. And the central bank will continue with the policies it has always had. And regardless of the new administration, in some sense, good central bankers do their work based on data as opposed to political expediencies. This is according to the CBK Governor Patrick Njoroge. And therefore, this is also a conversation that is still on, and the difference, submissions that were given by the deputy president, and as well central bank coming to counter that and arguing otherwise. Kenya nets about 39 billion from private equity deals. That is a story that has been captured on page 14. And raise salaries for graduate police officers, the judge orders. This is a story that has been captured on page 6. We'll be getting to the details of the same just to get to understand what more about this very, very important judgments. And we're talking about graduate officers pocket millions in new court order. The National Police Service Commission directs to pay officers salary equivalent to those in Group J they enjoyed previously. This verdict, the High Court had ruled that the decision to move the officers from Job Group J to Job Group F was unreasonable and unconstitutional. That is what we'll be looking at, and so much more. And so let's for a moment shift gears from the papers and take a look at what has been prepared by my team. Police from Migwani in Mwingi West sub-county are investigating a murder case in which a father is suspected of killing his 14-year-old son, who was a student of Chome Primary School and was to sit this year's KCPE examinations. It is claimed that Mumo Mwendwa was killed by his father after being hit with an axe, and he was rushed to the hospital but died while receiving treatment. Haemba Emmanuel with more.
It is alleged that the suspect Mumo Mwendwa died after he was hit with an axe by his father after a dispute that came up when he came late from the river where he was sent to go and fetch water.
Grace Muli, Chief Chome location, na niko na huzuni sana kwa area yangu kwa ile ilitokea. Kuna mzee alimpiga mtoto wake akamuua kwa sababu alikuwa amemtuma kwa mto akashote maji, alafu akachelewa. Alipokuja wakaanza kusozana, akampiga akitumia shoka.
According to Mumo's aunt, she had a conflict between them, although he did not succeed in saving the child as the door was locked.
Nilisikia sauti mbabake akimwambia, hebu enda ukaite andi akuje. Umwachie kwa heri ukikufa hata mimi naenda kufa. Then hapo ndo nilifungua mlango na nikaenda kuita mamangu na babangu.
The child died while receiving treatment due to excessive body injuries.
Mtoto alifika hospitali akatibiwa, akakuwa kwa sawa, ana breathe vizuri. Bila alipelekwa kwa ward, watu wakaona ako sawa, alikuwa anaitika kidogo. Watu wakaenda home, wakaniacha mimi na uncle yangu hapo tukiwa wawili. Mimi nimebaki peke yangu. Mimi nasikia mtoto ameanza kukua mbaridi. Namshika tumbo vile alikuwa ana breathe inainuka hivi kidogo. Ainuki. Nikiweka hivi vidole kwa mapua hapo, nikishika huku damu itembei.
It is alleged that the suspect is a drug addict and that not once has he threatened to commit murder before committing suicide.
Na nilisikia alikuwa anaambia mtoto, hebu enda uambie andi kwa heri njumi na kuua na mimi nijiue.
According to those who know the suspect, his relationship with neighbors has been strained due to the addiction.
Huyu mzee amekuwa na tabia ya kutokaa na watu vizuri, na hakuwa na tabia njema kwa area.
Kiome Location Chief Grace Muli says it's regrettable that a man killed his child, whom the community held a great hope in, since he was a candidate in this year's KCP exam, further advising parents to bring up their children with love and care.
So tulikuwa na matarajio makubwa, ndio kwa sababu alikuwa candidate ya mwaka huu.
Khaemba Emmanuel, TV47.
Now, Ezekiel Machogu was nominated by President William Ruto to take over as Education Cabinet Secretary from outgoing CS Professor George Magoha. If Parliament approves of Machogu as the next education boss, then what kind of ministry will he be inheriting? What are the expectations of Kenyans from him? Sharon Baranga explores.
In the last 10 years during the administration of President Uhuru Kenyatta, there has been a lot of changes, especially in the education sector. And as Education CS George Magoha prepares to hand over his office to incoming CS Ezekiel Machogu, that is, if Parliament approves of him, then Machogu will be inheriting an office that is close to the hearts of many Kenyans who have a lot of expectations from him, especially when it comes to the implementation of the competency-based curriculum.
Whoever will be considered has also to be somebody who will match this kind of boldness and ability to one who is decisive, not a lot of indecisiveness, and marshalling people, making people look at the bigger picture, no matter the obstacles that are there. But the next person who comes will be loss of thoughts, whether teachers lost their voice, but I think also teachers had also lost their credibility. It cannot be that every time you have got a grievance, you assume that the next thing to do is to go to the streets. We must also be a civil society where we can sit and discuss about our issues instead of issuing threats.
Magoha has been at the forefront in championing for the CBC. He has been in office when the education sector has been undergoing reforms that include securing national examinations and also nurturing a healthy relationship between the Ministry of Education and teachers' unions.
And history will be very, very kind to Professor Magoha because of what he has done, managing really the scourge of stealing exams. It was almost a national disaster. So we must be candid, we must be bold to really thank Professor Magoha for his personal effort that he put in, including employing a whole multi-sectoral agency, including ministries of ICT, Ministry of Interior and Coordination. We will see how under Professor Magoha, the whole cabinet will be marshaled to just go and support national examinations. So
the real test that will determine whether the nominated cabinet secretaries will excel and take over the mantle of leadership from their predecessors rests in the hands of the 13th Parliament. Sharon Baranga, TV47.
A requiem mass service for the late lawyer Paul Gicheru was held Tuesday at Regina Kaili Catholic Church in Karen. Friends and family described the late lawyer as one who has left behind a rich legacy that will serve as footprint for others to emulate. Gicheru, who passed away last week, was facing charges of extortion and witness intimidation in the collapse trial of President William Ruto at the International Criminal Court. His body will be interred Thursday at his Bahati home in Nyeri County.
Despite being of little words, you're a man of great action. You are loving, composed, and courageous. You are slow to anger and always gave numerous chances to people. You lived a life of selfless service, helping others even before you could help yourself, and not expecting anything in return. Us three can only strive to replicate the exemplary life in which you've lived. One, that you've always prepared us by giving us the best of everything you could. We will miss you dearly and treasure all our memories together, but you'll always be with us in everything that we do. And also, God, we love you, Dad, and we hope to see you again. Rest in peace, Alvin, Alex, and Alan. Thank you.
On Monday, before you went to be with the Lord, you held my hand and said to me, "Nobody will ever separate us." Very unexpected at that moment. That made me wonder if God sends messages to the people He's calling. It is very hard for me to accept that you're no longer here. There are wounds that are hard to heal. They say time heals the wounds. But with you gone, time will instead teach us how to live with the pain of not having you. The living God who gave you to me will be there for the children and I. It is hard to say goodbye, but I know that you're in a better place with our Heavenly Father. Fare thee well until we meet again. Sleep well, my love. May your soul rest in peace, my dearest husband, Paul. Amen.
Well, it is Regina Shirley, as my director would rightfully put it. Now, the Office of the Auditor General has called for synergy among investigative agencies and parliamentary oversight committees, among other stakeholders, in order to execute the constitutional mandate of safeguarding public resources. Flora Lemuki with the details.
As the 13th Parliament kicks off, the battle to control the oversight committees is taking shape, even as the Auditor General Nancy Gathungu decries a lack of transparency within the committees, hence compromising their service delivery.
The work of Parliament in oversight must count, and it can only count if there is implementation of recommendations.
The weak link between the Office of the Auditor General and the Parliamentary Oversight Committees, that is the Public Accounts Committee and Public Investment Committee, has led to an increase in graft cases over time.
Unsupported expenditures, where we have recommended entities to improve on their record keeping in support of the financial transactions that they make.
While making his first public appearance since his appointment, the Acting Director of Criminal Investigations, Masa Salim, laid out the main challenge that curtails the office from dealing with graft cases, one of them being the politicization of cases, as most involve high-profile leaders.
Most of the time, these reports touch on, public figures. They touch on public figures, and when you touch on the public figures, the stakes are high. You are looking at their reputation. You will try to safeguard their reputation. You are looking at their interests in the public domain, be it political, be it otherwise. So always they would see like we are being intrusive, but criminal investigations by nature are intrusive.
Sentiments that were echoed by the Director of Public Prosecutions, Nudin Haji, recommending that the DCI and DPP attend parliamentary committee meetings.
Parliament has the powers of High Court, and if people are summoned and they are not turning up, you should be able to tell the investigators and even prosecutors, and we can prosecute because they can be charged for not honoring those issues.
The aide has recommended the formulation of structures for cooperation between constitutional commissions, independent offices and other oversight bodies, as well as building a mechanism for follow-up on implementation of recommendations and report back to Parliament and county assemblies on the status of recommendations. Flora Limuki, TV 47.
Now, Kericho Deputy Governor Fred Kirui has finally opened up about his sore relationship with Kericho Governor Eric Mutai. Speaking at his official residence in Kipkelion, Kirui has said that his agreement with Governor Mutai was breached during the naming of Kericho CECs, where 4 of his appointees were left out. Kirui now says he will not resign and will continue pushing until his appointees are awarded the job. Cheptoboit with the details.
After days of speculation, Kericho Deputy Governor Fred Kirui has finally broken the silence on his stalemate with the county boss Eric Mutai on allegations that his office has been frustrated, making him skip several official meetings. According to the Kericho County Deputy Governor, his agreement with the governor was a negotiable government and to share the county leadership in the ratio of 40% to 60%. The agreement has now been breached, according to him, after Mutai failed to gazette 4 of his nominees to the County Executive Committee CEC positions and went on to advertise the positions.
It was also agreed that upon being elected, we will share the county leadership in the ratio of 40% to the Deputy Governor and 60% to the Governor. From the onset, therefore, it was agreed that the government we were forming was going to be a negotiated government. Number 4. Fast forward, on 9th August 2022, we were elected into office. It was my expectation that going forward, a structured consultation would be put in place on matters of appointment.
According to Fred Kirui, he is not going to back out but will still keep fighting to ensure he gets his 40% share.
Kujiuzulu hiyo ni ndoto ambao sina kwa kichwa kabisa. Na nataka niwahakikishie watu ya Kericho County ya kwamba hiyo propaganda ambao wanaeneza waikomeshe kabisa na waitoe kabisa kwa kichwa. Hii serikali niko na 40%, yeye ako na 60%. Nitatoka aje kwa serikali yangu ya 40%? Nitaweka wapi wapi? And my supporters, I want to assure them, wherever they are, that I am family in this government. And we will make sure that we deliver services vile ambavyo tuliongea wakati tulikuwa tunaomba kura.
This he has hinted that could cost their relationship, especially at the start of their first term in office.
In total disregard to the pre-election agreement, my negotiated share of the cabinet slots in the list that has been submitted to the county assembly for vetting is not reflected. Number 6, such actions and other related moves in the recent past have caused mistrust and discomfort and has clearly dented our working relationship. The concern by the public on my absence during unveiling of the names of CC is attributed to these weighty issues.
Kirui, who was vying for the second time, shelved his bid to become Kericho's governor in April after several interventions wanting him to deputize incumbent Mutai due to the popularity of the two. Cheptoboit, TV 47.
Now, Siaya Governor James Orengo has sent all the chief officers and the county secretary on compulsory leave to pave way for an independent audit of the county's financial transactions and human resource. Orengo further announced a mini reshuffle of the cabinet and a total overhaul of the finance and procurement dockets, adding that all officials who served in the 2 departments have been redeployed elsewhere. Paul Kirubi has more details.
For this county to help you get
chief officers and the county secretary in Siaya County have been sent on a compulsory leave, paving way for an independent audit of the county's financial transactions and human resource. The governor also announcing a mini reshuffle of the cabinet and a total overhaul of the finance and procurement dockets, adding that all officials who served in the 2 departments have been deployed elsewhere. The task force is chaired by former Auditor General Edward Ouko, Adams Olo, Grace Ongile, Bella Akinyi, Peter Joseph Okoth, Jared Bwoga, and Leonard Okanda. The action has been taken to create an enabling environment for the task force to carry its work and also help the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission and other investigative agencies to carry out their duties without interference.
all the 10 departmental accountants have been transferred to other departments or given other assignments. Number 5, all the 10 departmental procurement officers have been transferred to other departments or given other assignments. Number 6, the finance department has been overhauled and major changes made which take immediate effect.
The current County Executive Committee member for Enterprise and Industrial Development, Richard Mungla, will now head the Finance and Economic Planning docket, swapping process with his finance counterpart Cleophas Ombogo, who will take over the Enterprise docket. Dr. Elizabeth Odhiambo, the CEC in charge of agriculture, will take over the water, environment, natural resources and climate change in acting capacity. The docket was previously handled by Mr. Mungla in acting capacity. He, however, said that all the officers sent on compulsory leave will have to make themselves available whenever required by the task force and other state agencies dealing with the matter.
All the propaganda and play to the gallery. I am not going to leave any action from being taken if I deem that action to be in the public interest. I want to assure you that we want to make sure Siaya moves forward by making the process of government an enabler towards service delivery.
The governor said that he had no alternative but to take immediate steps by stopping payment of pending bills, processes of procurements, and the award of contracts. Orengo is the latest governor to make changes in his county government. The governor expressed concern that some individuals suspected to be members of the cartel that has been fleecing the county government were already calling members of the task force, threatening them over known consequences. Paul Kirobi, TV47.
President William Ruto has appointed Colonel Fabian Lengusuranga from the Kenya Army as his new aide-de-camp. Lengusuranga takes over from Timothy Lekolol, who served former President Uhuru Kenyatta and Ruto in his first weeks as head of state. Lengusuranga will be deputized by Colonel Damaris Agneta from the Kenya Army. And of course, but what to the people who normally stand behind the president, or what is about them? Our reporter Mike Kagungo set out to find the answers from the man who has been there before for former president, the late Mwai Kibaki, Colonel Geoffrey Kingangi.
Colonel Fabian Lengusuranga from Kenya Army is President William Ruto's new aide-de-camp. He takes over from Brigadier Timothy Stelu Lekolol from the Kenya Navy, who has been deployed to the Department of Defense headquarters. Lengusuranga accompanied Ruto to Nyeri Tuesday for Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua's elder brother's funeral.
I served for SADC for 3 years.
We sought to understand the role of an ADC through the late former President Mwai Kibaki's ADC Geoffrey Kingangi. Retired Colonel Kingangi says the role of an ADC is mostly a ceremonial role, serving as a symbol of dignity for the presidency and assisting on matters of security, protocol and military tradition.
By standing behind the president, the country is reminded that this is also the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. But more importantly, he is the closest person to the president at all times.
Kingangi left public service as Kibaki's aide-de-camp in 2012 to contest for the Mbeere South parliamentary seat, where he lost to Mutava Musyimi. He later clinched the seat in 2017 after flooring Musyimi and other contestants.
I don't know whether this is a fun bit.
Kingangi, who was seeking to defend his seat on a United Democratic Alliance UDA ticket, lost during the primaries after getting 1,570 votes. According to Colonel Kingangi, the ADC is a personal assistant to the president who is able to keep him up to date on the various programs that are ahead of him and so on.
The role of safety, security, and then finally the order, to ensure that there is order around the president.
He says one has to be a bit curious to know what's going on all the time, and hence has to work closely with the presidential escort commander to make sure that things are working right.
But one thing that helps is that the ADC lives in State House. So from when you break from work to your house, it's 2 minutes because it's still within the compound. That helps. But it will be a false impression to say that you have your time to go and socialize and all that. No.
The ADC is often a highly trained senior military officer required to be part of the president's itinerary at all time. Lengusuranga, the new aide de camp, was commissioned into service in 1999. Before his appointment, he served as a senior Special Forces branch commander.
But not ceremonial in the sense of it's not important. It's ceremonial in the sense of it's very, very important because you are part of a very big image. So that because you become part of that presidency.
On the other hand, Colonel Damaris Agneta from the Kenya Army takes over from Rachel Nduta Kamui, who has also been promoted to a full colonel and deployed to the Department of Defense. Agneta was commissioned in 2003 and was serving as an artillery officer. She also served in the United Nations Observer Mission. The appointment of an ADC is done by National Security Council upon recommendation by Defense Headquarters. Mike Kagwongo, TV 47, Nairobi.
Now, the government's move to lift the ban on genetically modified crops has continued to elicit reactions from research scientists, agriculturalists, and biotechnology experts. Some have lauded the move, saying it is part of the medium to long-term responses to the ongoing drought and progressive step towards significantly redefining agriculture in Kenya by adapting crops that are resistant to pests and diseases. Our reporter Elizabeth Atieno spoke to Paul Chege, a biodiversity expert, and filed this report.
On Monday, the government lifted the 10-year ban on genetically modified crops, or GMO, in a move aimed at helping the country plant diverse and drought-resistant crops, whereby farmers will be allowed to cultivate and import food crops and animal feeds produced through biotechnology. But what exactly is GMO? Paul Chege, a biotechnology expert, explains.
Genetically modified organisms are crops that have been improved through obtaining of genes from varieties that or organisms that are from different species.
President Ruto's decision followed an earlier cabinet decision on the 19th of December 2019 when genetically modified cotton was approved for commercialization. This is after the variety proved to be resistant against African bollworm, which happens to be the most destructive and pervasive pest in cotton farming.
And in the context that we are in right now in Kenya, if I may explain using BT cotton, this is a cotton, usually cotton hybrids that have been improved using genes from a soil bacteria, common soil bacteria called BT or Bacillus thuringiensis. This BT, the bacteria has properties or has characteristics in that it produces insecticidal proteins.
Use of genetically modified organisms was fully embraced in 2009 when the National Biosafety Authority Act was established with the mandate to exercise control over transfer, handling and use of GMO crops. This move was well received by Kenyans, especially scientists, to the point that the country approved the application to introduce genetically modified sweet potatoes in April 2010.
And even our own National Biosafety Authority, they tell us that the GMOs that have been approved are as safe as their conventionally bred counterparts. So they do not pose any additional risk as compared to the conventionally bred counterparts, the hybrids that we have been consuming.
In March 2011, Kenya commenced thorough research on various genetically modified crops like bananas, maize, cotton and cassava that were bred to give crops resistance to various pests and diseases. Scientists concluded the research and waited for approval for commercial release, but that was never to see the light of day. The reason being after presidential decree by the late former President Mwai Kibaki on the 8th of November 2012, where he prohibited the importation of food crops and animal feeds produced through biotechnology. This was after the then Public Health Minister Beth Mugo linked GMO to cancer. The move was, however, castigated and labeled selfish by various stakeholders who argued that the decision would have a negative impact on the country's economy.
We can't say we have moved as we would if we didn't have the ban. So it was quite a block. And so we, as Kenyan scientists, we feel very relieved. We can now operate. But then we operate under regulations by NBA. And, even the NBA was, I would say, not operating at full capacity as it would now. There is a real opportunity to regulate without the ban.
Scientists now maintain that the health concerns raised are not grounded on any scientific evidence.
GMOs do not cause cancer. And I don't think there is any one known cause of cancer.
Since the ban, farmers decried huge losses, as was clearly depicted in January 2022, when millers raised concerns that they failed to get animal and chicken feed raw materials that were 100% GMO-free to import. This forced the government in June to ease restrictions on chicken feeds imports, allowing millers to import 99.1% GMO-free products.
We have always improved crops, germplasm. We have always improved animals over the years. If we were to remain with the variety that was there originally of maize, then maybe we wouldn't have food to eat today.
The United States also faulted Kenya over failure to approve GMO foods and crops, saying the measure was restricting sales of products from U.S. companies, which have been seeking potential new markets like Kenya. In August this year, the National Biotechnology Authority, NBA, commenced a search for biosafety experts to provide advice on biotechnology. The researchers advised that the use of GMO would be beneficial as it would reduce the cost of animal feeds and reduce pressure on maize meant for human consumption.
The health repercussions or the health risks that may be presented by the improved varieties are not any different from those that are presented from consuming the conventionally bred varieties.
Kenya is now the 30th country in the world and the 8th in Africa to embrace GMO. Elizabeth Atieno, TV 47.
Now, despite stirring up an enormous social media tornado, Uganda's Muhoozi Kainerugaba's job title has been upgraded, and the former Lieutenant General was promoted to General, the highest ranking title in Uganda military, a title conferred on him, that is by his father and President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. And as Stanley Nyaringita reports, the international relations experts are of the view that Museveni is balancing a tightrope of pleasing his son and his country.
Just before the Twitter storm that Muhoozi Kainerugaba had starred could settle, a new job title had been bestowed upon him. In a letter sent to newsrooms, Ugandan President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni had promoted his son General, which is the highest ranking title in Ugandan military. Muhoozi is also set to continue his duties as a senior presidential advisor. The letter also indicated that Major General Muhanga Kayanja has been promoted to Lieutenant General. In a twist of events, the Foreign Ministry of Uganda disassociated the country from the tweets by General Muhoozi. The ministry noted that Uganda treasures the strong bilateral ties it holds with Kenya. Further, the letter stated that the government of Uganda doesn't conduct its foreign policy and other official business through social media, nor does it depend on social media sources in dealing with sovereign governments. Muhoozi kicked off his tweet storm with a brotherly advice to former President of Kenya, Uhuru Kenyatta, stating that Uhuru should have sought a third term and could have been re-elected. The Twitter war reached its peak when he posed the question, after army captures Nairobi, where should I live? Westlands, Riverside? International relations expert Professor Macharia Munene, however, notes that the social media gaffe has hugely affected his leadership image.
The implication is that Uganda is preparing for a war with Kenya. That's the implication. So it's a very serious and immature tweet from a senior military officer of the Uganda Defense Forces.
Stanley Nyeringita, TV47, Nairobi.
Now, political statements dominated the funeral service of the elder brother to Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, Rigathi Gachagua, in Nyeri County, with some hard-hitting sentiments directed to former President Uhuru Kenyatta. President William Ruto, who was in attendance, however, steered off politics of the day and instead highlighted the heavy task ahead of him, that of improving the country's economy. Moige William with that.
President William Ruto was back in the mountain region, making his first maiden trip to the region as the head of the republic, albeit in a somber occasion. President William Ruto, together with a number of leaders, was leading mourners in the final send-off of his deputy Rigathi Gachagua's elder brother, Rigathi Gachagua, who passed on battling diabetes, arthritis and blood pressure for a number of years. While addressing mourners, President Ruto thanked the people of the mountain region for voting him in as the 5th president, but quickly reminded those present of the heavy task ahead of him to improve the country's economy.
Niko na watu wengi ambao mmenipatia, ambao watashirikiana na mimi kutekeleza yale makubaliano tulikubaliana na nyinyi vile ya kubadilisha taifa letu la Kenya.
The president called for a concerted effort from all three arms of government so as to enable his administration to deliver its promises made to Kenyans during the campaign period. On his part, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua affirmed his support to the president as they embark on delivering for Kenyans. The number 2 in command criticizing former President Uhuru Kenyatta-led administration for abandoning Ruto, who served as the deputy president.
Vile wananchi wamekuwa wangwana, wametupatia nafasi ya uongozi, wametupigia kura. Na sisi tutimize wajibu wetu.
The people of this region did not vote for you because you supported President Uhuru Kenyatta. They did not vote for you because of the 10-10 fraud. No. They voted for you. They made a conscious decision.
Gachagua also hailed the people from the mountain for voting in Ruto, terming it as a change in Kenya's politics.
That electing President William Ruto is not enough. President William Ruto must succeed and turn around this country.
Hata sisi tutasimama imara so that we can quickly rebuild our country, which has got a lot of challenges.
Leaders accompanying the president to the event didn't shy away from speaking out their mind, attacking former President Uhuru Kenyatta, saying that he neglected the region development-wise for supporting now President William Ruto.
Iwezekana ile pesa ilitolewa kwa budget, iwe ni barabara, iwe ni wa maji, sababu Mheshimiwa Deputy President wetu Honorable Rigathi Gachagua alikuwa rafiki yako, tafadhali.
That business where back in the day laws were brought to Parliament, quickly hurried for the benefit of a select few, that is history right now.
Rigathi Gachagua, who passed on aged 70, was laid to rest at his rural home in Herega village, leaving behind his wife Cecilia Rigathi and 2 sons. It is God who gives and it is God who takes, and it is the final journey for Jackson Rigathi Gachagua, the elder brother to the Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, the man who was hailed as a family man. Mwege William, TV47, Herega in Nyeri County.
Now, the battle for the control of the 13th Parliament between Azimio and Kenya Kwanza spilled over to Senate, with the 2 coalitions claiming majority and urging the Speaker to put it into consideration. Azimio senators raised the matter in the afternoon session, seeking clarification on the matter on just which side of the political divide has numerical strength over the other, owing to the fact that President Ruto had nominated 2 of its members to the executive.
Unlike their counterparts in the National Assembly, the Senate started its first sitting by a procedural motion on formation of the House Business Committee, with members from across the political divide getting nominated in the list. However, Nyamira Senator Okongo Omogeni caused a storm on the composition of the House Business Committee that should reflect the majority and minority, further asking the Speaker to make a ruling on which side of the House submitted the name of Mandera Senator Ali Roba to the committee.
As it stands today, says that if the Speaker is in doubt as to which side a member belongs in any coalition or a political party, we can seek communication from the registrar of political parties.
This raising a debate in the House for the better part of the sitting, Azimio members claiming the clause in Azimio agreement does not allow political defections before a 90 days time elapse, though Senator Roba insists he has nothing to do with Azimio anymore.
Senator Roba has filed for decree. He's been granted decree nisi. He has not been given decree absolute. He is still our wife, and they are working with him in parties, in weddings, in events, in functions. Mr. Speaker, that is bigamy. And bigamy is an offense under the law, punishable by 5 years in prison. Mr. Speaker, even if he has filed papers, perhaps he has decree nisi, wait for decree absolute. And that's why I'm saying it could be that mischief that Senator Cheriot wants to show us that our wife has left us. But our wife has not been discharged. Mr. Speaker, I really want to urge that we go back and redraft this motion. We go back and remove and put names that are non-controversial. Authority as the party leader of UDM, United Democratic Movement. We do not have anything on record in our files in United Democratic Movement as a party of purported agreement between ourselves and Azimio. But we have an agreement, post-election agreement between ourselves and Kenya Kwanza that has been publicly executed with every clause and every detail known that is with us, and we've taken to the registrar.
Further, the Azimio members tried to outsmart their opponents after the nomination of 2 senators to serve in the executive, claiming this leaves them as the majority in the Senate.
Who wrote you what letter? All Senior Omogeni is saying, even in the communication of the membership of this committee, could you please, as the chair, tell us that a letter was received from X coalition listing the following members as its nominees in the language of Standing Order 190. That is all we are asking, Mr. Speaker. Number 2, the custodian of all agreements, Honorable Murkomen, cannot come here to tell the House who is in which coalition and who isn't. I happen to be not just the Senator of Nairobi, but the Secretary General of ODM. I know what we signed, Murkomen. We have the authority on the coalition documents that we signed.
Senate Speaker Emerson Kingi, however, says he is yet to receive any resignation letter from Senators Kipchumba Murkomen, who has been nominated to serve as the Transport Cabinet Secretary, and nominated Senator Soipan Tuya, who has been nominated to serve in Environment and Forestry Ministry. Elizabeth Mutuko, TV 47.
Phase of played out in the National Assembly as Kenya Kwanza and Azimio One Kenya coalition faced off in their quest to be declared as the majority side after Speaker Moses Wetangula delayed his ruling to Thursday this week to allow members of parliament to ventilate on the issue before their retreats to write the ruling. And before Thursday ruling, Deputy Speaker Gladys Boshule will act as the majority leader. And as TV47's Apollo Kamau reports, the Jubilee Party has added another twist to the majority debate after presenting its majority leadership lineup.
The supremacy battle over who should take the House leadership majority slot between Kenya Kwanza and Azimio played out in the National Assembly Tuesday afternoon after House Speaker Moses Wetangula allowed the MPs to debate the matter before he retreats to write the ruling, which he will deliver on Thursday afternoon. MPs allied to Kenya Kwanza, led by their proposed majority leader Kimani Ichung'wah, tasking the Speaker ahead of his ruling to be cognizant of the fact that Azimio One Kenya Coalition is not a parliamentary party since no MP was sponsored under the coalition ticket. Adding a twist to the Azimio status dilemma is the Jubilee Party move to present its majority leadership lineup to the Speaker.
Is the Azimio One Kenya Alliance Coalition political party a party? Is it a parliamentary political party? And the straight answer, Honorable Speaker, is that Azimio One Kenya Coalition party does not exist as a parliamentary political party.
Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Coalition party is both a political party and a coalition under the Political Parties Act. This is the law.
4 of Azimio affiliate parties, MDG, MCC, PA, and UDM, have since withdrawn their membership but are still bound by the agreement until 3 months after the election. Kenya Kwanza disputing the claim, saying they were forced to sign the agreement and have already withdrawn.
If you want to exit this coalition agreement, there are exit clauses you have to follow. There are clauses that allow you to exit, Mr. Speaker.
Before the House began the debate, the Speaker had informed members of the dilemma confronting the House due to the lack of majority and minority leadership slots, and how both sides submitted letters staking claims to the majority leadership and whip slots.
Respect for our standing orders is sacrosanct. I will consider the matters that you have prosecuted before the House, and I'll give you a reasoned ruling touching on the facts, the jurisprudence, the constitutionality of the issues, and any other matters that you conversed on Thursday.
A ruling by the Speaker on Thursday will set the ball rolling on crucial activities that have been delayed in the House, among them the constitution of the House Business Committee that sets the agenda of the House. Deputy Speaker Gladys Beausoleil will act as a majority leader until the Speaker's ruling on Thursday afternoon. Apol Kamau, TV47.
Well, that and a couple of other stories will be forming the basis of our conversation this morning, and therefore we take a quick short break. We come back to that.
You are watching TV47, the home.
Mood disorder.
And even suicidal thoughts.
When I was just about to hang myself, a certain voice just talked to me, and I believe that was God. I tried suicide more than 6 times.
Beyond the Limit has gone beyond its limit to find answers so as to help everyone go through life with ease. Join Muhoozi Maina every Saturday at 7:30 p.m. Starting this September at 8:30 p.m. on Tuesday, The Realtor brings it all to perspective. We identify a property, discuss and demonstrate the journey towards ownership.
Professionals who have integrity, and from their catalog you can easily read that these are professionals who are able to deliver.
Everywhere you go, you have to up your games, you have to go with the trends.
Not forgetting the margins as well as the risks that come along.
The runaway prices of the land. We are saying that it's something that we can never go without mentioning. Any developer will not go without mentioning price of land.
Don't miss out. Do you want the latest news on farming? We've got the WikiLeaks for you. Get it? No? Well, okay. Every week, we give you insights on different farms, from crop farming to animal keeping.
They're very hardy insects, yeah? The larvae is a very hardy insect.
We look forward to having an optimum production in maybe about 5 years. Yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
So we plant every week and we harvest every week.
Join Violet Njoki every Sunday at 6:30 p.m. as we skooma the wiki. at 7:30 p.m. Are watching TV 47, the home of untold stories.
Welcome back to the broadcast. Let's get to this very important conversation. As earlier mentioned, we'll be having gentlemen that help us decipher in this, those ones that are well known to the matters of politics or have, proper understanding of the politics of the day and generally the matters that are of importance that we focus on this morning. We will be looking at this conversation of the GMOs. Definitely was expecting to get a hold of Honorable Omboko Milemba, who apparently might not be here, but all the same, we wish that he would be here so he can speak to the question of education, the competency-based curriculum, and that team that has been set to look into that matter, but as well, this one that appears to be a threat, but at the same cannot be taken lightly. That is the utterances of Museveni's son, Muhoozi, and we'll definitely get to hear the view of the gentlemen that we have as pertaining to them, but as pertaining to the same, but most importantly, on the standoff that we have at the National Assembly as to who then takes the majority position and who takes the minority. Honorable Joash Mangi is here with us this morning. Thank you so much, Mheshimiwa, for creating time to be with us, as well as Dr. Peter Mbai. Thank you so much for creating time, Dr. to be here with us. And so much happening in the country, including that conversation of the GMO. Perhaps as specialists and also as people who will definitely get a chance to consume some of these foods that we speak of. Really at a dire state as a country indeed, in terms of us getting foods, quality food for that matter, as well as affordable, and we understand that from the Jubilee reign, there was that conversation as to making sure that, we have sufficient food for us as a people. That is under the pillar of the Big Four agenda. Seemed not to have worked, and therefore we come to a space where it's a different reign and a different times of events. And this decision by the current government to lift the ban on GMO, some have received it well, some have put, a pointing finger on the same. What do you make of it, Honorable Joash Mangi? After a very long time, first of all, Karibu.
First, thank you very much, Linda. Let me say that it's been long because we had gone to look for votes. And we managed to bring in our president, William Samoei Ruto.
Congratulations, so you pulled a nice move, which really was successful.
I am always right when it comes to politics.
That's good.
But that notwithstanding, let me say about the GMOs. Linda, Kenya is a member of the global community, and the world has become one big village. And everywhere you go, especially the developed world, the GMO is everywhere.
Right.
So, I mean, it's naive to imagine that Kenya can remain an isolated country doing our own indigenous things. It's not possible. We know GMOs have their own disadvantages, but it is the way to go. Unfortunately, that we don't have a choice. We don't have a choice.
Right.
If you come to my home in Kisii,
right,
which used to be extremely productive, with a farmland of 10 acres, you will feed 10 people, 15 people.
Yeah.
Let me use my own family as an example. We are 9 children, and our father's land was 10.
Right.
10 acres. Now we have divided that land, each of us as
1
acre each.
Yes.
Now, let me use my own family again. My oldest brother has 4 sons.
Yeah.
So when he divides that land, he's going to have, each son will have a quarter.
Yeah.
I have 2 sons. When I divide that land, each son will have an acre.
Yes.
So how are you going to do farming? It's not possible.
Yeah.
So there are 2 things we must do. We must begin utilizing the small piece of land we have maximally. And the only way to do that is to go GMO way. Number two, we must also learn to change the land tenure system. We need to change the land tenure system so that the people can move to town and leave agricultural land for agricultural production. So I, in a nutshell, I am saying we don't have a choice. I don't think we have a choice in Kenya. GMO
is the way to go.
Is the way to go. It may not be the best, but it's the only alternative. You tell me, you have only 1 acre for the family. But if you
want to maximize, and
you must maximize that family land. In Kiambu here, people with 1 acre of land are able to produce 100, 200 liters of milk per day using just 1 acre of land. And that how else can you do that? You must have GMO to promote the grass they use, all of these things. So I don't think we have a choice. It is the way of advancement. It's where we are as a world, as a nation, and Kenya cannot be an isolated island.
Doctor, you know, scientists, and I've also read a story right here that, you know, a majority of them speaking to the effects and the dangers that lie ahead as pertaining to that. And perhaps to just cement the same is that we're coming from a phase where there was a ban on the GMO, and now then the current government decides perhaps it's time that we lift this, you know, citing what is happening across other different countries as well. Others that argue otherwise say that, you know, in these other different countries, they have realized the dangers of GMO, and therefore they've decided that totally they will try and go organic. The dangers lie here and they're clear. What do you make of this?
Thanks so much. Linda, we have to learn as a nation how to be progressive. We must learn that we cannot remain where we were. This matter was started off many years ago. I think around 2002, around 2010.
Right.
There was a task force. Actually, the president was very clear. Further, pursuant to the report of the task force, that's why it was lifted. You know, there's this issue with Kenyans, Linda. Everybody has an opinion. You're walking in the streets. You have an opinion, and you want that opinion to actually occupy a national space. You want that opinion. It's okay to have opinions. By the way, we love opinions. Everybody can say what they want to do. Let's not be so much constricted. We'll never move forward as a nation. And all the people who are talking about the dangers, if you ask them, where is the paper? Linda, in Kenya today, the institutions that are already running GMO approved projects, look at that. That is Karo, that is Isipe, that is Kari. Those are serious organizations. So I'm asking those people with all those negative ideas about GMO, why don't they take it to the scientists? Because they are not scientists. Those guys talking around in the streets, they are not scientists. For me, I would want, immediately I hear about GMO, the first thing I would do as a political scientist, for example, as a professional, is to go look for the papers, to go and see who has studied this. What does the report say? But you can, anything in Kenya, it's causing cancer. If you ask somebody who is causing cancer, you cannot tell. So I am so much that we must be very particular and we must learn to grow.
Right. Now,
how many, in Kenya alone, there are so many plants already, which are already being developed, including maize, sweet potato, cassava. There is all the kind of cotton and all that. You have the issues of BT cotton, BT maize and all that. They are already developing. Look at the world. We have a list of about 12 already documented. Those are the ones we know scientifically. They're using GMO. I mean, including South Africa, including Canada, including China, including the United States of America. So what I can say is please, I want to urge our people. The moment a policy comes up, and the moment something goes all the way to cabinet, surely there's no president or cabinet that will sit to kill Kenyans the way it's being said. So yes, GMO is here to stay, and GMO is a very simple thing. Is to say there is a way genetically food is helped to grow faster. Already as we speak, the food we eat, a lot of the animal feeds, a lot of chicken feeds and all that. There were anything imported these days. Most of it is produced using GMO content. So we cannot begin saying, oh, there's no way we are taking this. In any case, Linda, people here are having issues with with cancer. People here are having issues with health issues already, even without the GMO. Right. So it doesn't mean that the GMO will come and sweep everybody under the planet. So what we need to understand here, the conversation is very healthy, but let people know we are not going back.
Okay.
Come and say whatever you want to say under that. And I want to encourage people. Let them walk to Karo or Isipe or Kari. Give that idea, because this organization, now there is an authority. There is an authority called Biodiversity Authority in Kenya, which is a government body. It is the one that is supposed to tell us. It is it earns government money. It is kept by the taxpayers. They have given a clean health, a clean
10-year ban,
Yes.
Dr. Why was it banned in the first place in a government that the then Deputy President and now the current President was sitting in? Perhaps we need to play that story briefly so that we get to it. Mr. Director, if you have it. Oh, it runs for 5 minutes. That would be quite a long time.
Yeah.
All right, for all the same.
Yeah. The most hilarious thing, Linda, about that ban was very funny. The minister, Beth Mungo, was the Minister for Health. Yeah. I remember very well. And she came up with a report to the cabinet, a very hilarious issue, saying it has found to be causing cancer. Now, there is no any single report tabled. It's just a report from the minister. From where it was, nobody knows where the report came from, saying it causes cancer. Surely, those 15 years ago, it causes cancer without any scientific research on it. That's why I'm saying some of the things that we find on our table, because then, there was that issue of, anything coming, this one is going to cause cancer. You remember the issue of immunization? Just from the word go, no, it's going to cause this, it's going to cause this. Can we refuse to live in the old age? Can we now, can we agree to say, now in short, I want to say this, all those fears about cancer has been scientifically been swept under the carpet. They are not there. That's a quick answer. They are no longer there.
Dr. Barak Muluka joins us. Thank you so much for creating time, Dr. It's on the GMO matter and the ban. And now we are talking about lifting the ban. The same faces, that were there in the previous government, the same faces that we have in the current government, the same reports that still lie on the tables, and that people would want to look at these reports as baseless reports. Would we really want to get to that space? Is the government, then justified to lift this ban?
Thank you very much, Linda, and thank you, my colleagues, Dr. Mbai and Governor Maangi. My apologies, I've had to attend to one or two emerging issues, and I'm happy to be here. First, let us begin by admitting that very few people in the world generally, and fewer still in this country, understand genetics.
Right.
The whole discipline of genetics in science is fairly recent, and therefore a lot of people will be talking on the basis of rumors and innuendo. There are people who have been trained scientists and who have been exploring that branch of science. And as a scholar, I come in a very limited sense from my own space. And I would begin by looking at this matter from the biblical book of genetics, of Genesis. Not genetics, Genesis. The two are close, but they are different. Genesis 1:28. And if you allow me, I will just read, where God gives man the following injunction: be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the air, and over every living thing that moves upon the earth. I think that is the genesis of science, that God gives the human being permission and what I would call a divine edict to go out, conquer the earth, subdue it, dominate it. You are not going to do that, to achieve that, by being freakish, by being afraid of exploration. And I have been privileged to have been around long enough to see people resisting new things and coming up with all manner of rumors, invective and innuendo. I remember some years, decades in fact, back when the hybrid seed of maize was first being introduced to this country. There was a lot of resistance. I remember people like my grandparents saying, what is this new seed that Kenyatta is bringing us? It was during the Jomo Kenyatta years.
Right.
And they were even disturbed that the seed was coming colored with some ink, and they didn't like it at all. So resistance of this kind will always happen. Many years later, as a student of mass communication theory and practice, I was privileged to take a course in development studies. And in development studies, we learn about diffusion of innovations. How do innovations flow from the innovators to the early adapters to the late adapters, and the scholars in this area? If you permit me, I'll mention people like Everett Rogers, Wilbur Schramm, people like Daniel Lerner. They tell us that there's even a fourth category of people where innovations are concerned.
Right.
They are called the laggards. They have no idea that anything is happening. So here we are, indeed we are happy and privileged that we have the opportunity to discuss and debate these things, so that in the end there are going to be very few laggards. But let us agree that innovations are always resisted. The early adapters will see the advantage and they will embrace the technology and they will move on. The late adapters will get on board when the early adapters and the innovators have in fact moved to a new plane and they are dealing with something completely different, or they are dealing with the new aspects of the same technology. Therefore, the most critical thing would be to listen to our scientists, ask them questions, probing questions, let them confirm to us that the necessary tests, examination, checks and balances have been done. And I think that a window of 10 years, in the case of our country, is long enough. Mind you, France, for example, started embracing genetically modified foods in 1994. We are almost 30 years behind.
Well, interesting. 195 countries or thereabout, and 30 have embraced the GMO. Of course, 30 globally, and we're looking at Kenya being amongst the 8 that have as well embraced the same. How do we sell this to the people, first of all, without selling fear, and also without appearing as if a majority really want to be politically correct, as we sum it up on that briefly?
You know, one thing I love about appearing here with my friend Dr. from the one from Emmanuel, is extremely knowledgeable. And every time I come here with him, I go away learning, having learned something. Right. What he has explained is very correct. There has always been resistance to change. And GMO is one of those things that will be resisted, has been resisted. But it's the way of the future. And there's no better way of explaining other than what you said, and accepting that change will always come. The only thing that is constant is change. If we insist on using the traditional way of agriculture, where we had our land with natural manure, it's no longer there. We have exhausted it. So we must find a way of improving production. And remember, the population has increased, but the land has not increased. Land is constant. So we must continue finding ways of improving production to be able to feed these emerging large numbers of human beings and even animals in this world.
Right.
I do not think we have an alternative. GMO is the way to go. genetics is the way to go. Okay. And maybe I would not be surprised if in the next 10, 20 years, we might be doing even something more than what we're doing today. Yes.
Okay, well, interesting. You want to say something?
I think you have asked a very good question. How do we move this conversation so that people can understand and answer their questions? Right. I would want to urge people who are less knowledgeable to allow scientists to do their work. And with a very simple, basic explanation. GMOs, in a very simple language, is simply the issue of genetically modified organisms. Organisms whose genes have been scientifically altered, right? So that they can adapt to different things. The heat, adaptability to weather, right? The length of time it takes to mature. Right. I'll give an example of katumani, right? It has been modified such that within a very short time, maybe 3 months, and the heat, it doesn't need to grow so high. That is what we call modification. It's simply an issue of scientifically altered genes which are being altered to do the right thing. Now, the fear that is there, because it's good to speak also to the fears, right. They fear that now when these genes are modified and you take that maize, for example, the human being will also be modified, such that the hate, the whatever, those are the, what we would call in Kiswahili itikadi, those beliefs, which has no basis in science anywhere. Kenya is known to be a leader in many things, economy, technology. Surely we can't go back on this. We have serious organizations in Kenya that do these things, like I've mentioned, Kari, Isipe. These are serious organizations.
So is this a gamble, or is certainly going to be the ultimate solution to the food problems that we have in the country?
That is a major step towards food security. Okay. It's a major step because of production. Look, and you're going to see, look at the BT cotton. It's a variety that can withstand a lot of things. So we must give it a try, and we are here. We are not going anywhere. Science is the way to go. Science, and science. The people who are talking around, some of them, they just want, like you say, politically correct, they just want to oppose for the sake of opposing because of other things. Yeah. We must learn to move on as a nation. Okay. We cannot be wanting to go ahead, be a leader, and yet want to lag behind.
Let's shelve that one in the best interest of time. Dr. Barak, do we call him Reckless Museveni Jr.?
I've been actually completely puzzled, flabbergasted. First, I thought it was a joke. There are these things which happen in social media, and social media is essentially a school without standards. If we can consider an institution that is called a school, and everyone is free to get into any classroom and attend any lesson and say anything they want, regardless of any order, that they are teachers, that there are regulations, that is social media for you. So when I first had my attention drawn to these tweets, I thought, it's one of those things. I thought it was somebody attempting to impersonate the gentleman, the up to then commander of the army in Uganda. But I've gotten progressively disillusioned, and just wondered how a military commander in a neighboring country would, out of nowhere, completely unprovoked, to the best of my knowledge, start talking about conquest, conquering, capturing, taking siege of the capital city of another country. But even more puzzling is that the next day, his father, who arrived in power for the first time through bombast and blasting his way to the capital city, promotes him to a full general. But ahead of that, he says that he has had lengthy discussions with his father, and that the father is going to make the necessary announcements. I take note of a number of things. Number one, this person is not talking about the president. He's talking about my father. Number two, he's talking about our former president, recently retired, as his brother. I don't know where that brotherhood emanates. beyond a shared brotherhood of man that we would all want to claim to be a part of. And number 3 is that this gentleman scoffs at our institutions. He pours scorn on our democracy. He pours scorn on our constitution and pours scorn on our elections. He laughs at us and laughs at the retired President Uhuru Kenyatta and says that in Uganda they only understand one thing, which is called a revolution, and that very soon we are going to see it, and that it won't take him more than 2 weeks to get to Nairobi.
Dr. Barak, 30 minutes past the top of the hour. I'll come back to you. Allow us to take a quick short break, and then we come back on that very note.
Okay.
Thank you.
You are watching. Disability is not only limited to physical disorder, but also mental issue. From depression,
I was under depression for like 2 years.
Bipolar.
Bipolar disorder is a mood disorder.
And even suicidal thoughts.
When I was just about to hang myself, a certain voice just talked to me, and I believe that was God. I tried suicide more than 6 times.
Beyond the Limit has gone beyond its limit to find answers so as to help everyone go through life with ease. Join Muhoozi Maina every Saturday at 7:30 p.m. Starting this September at 8:30 p.m. on Tuesday, The Realtor brings it all to perspective. We identify a property, discuss and demonstrate the journey towards ownership.
Professionals who have integrity, and from their catalog you can easily read that these are professionals who are able to deliver.
Everywhere you go, you have to up your games. You have to go with the trends.
Not forgetting the margins as well as the risks that come along.
The runaway prices of the land. We are saying that it's something that we can never go without mentioning. Any developer will not go without mentioning price of land.
Don't miss out. Do you want the latest news on farming? We've got the WikiLeaks for you. Get it? No? Well, okay. Every week, we give you insights on different farms from
All right, welcome back to the broadcast. Dr. Barak Muluka is with us, Dr. Peter Bai, as well as Honorable Joash Mwangi. Dr. Barak, back to you on these conversations of, possibility of Uganda invading. Yes, you've laid the ground.
Let me cut it to the chase.
Yes, please.
Having laid the foundation that then makes room for sensible conversation. It suggests that the Uganda, I've seen posts that recall the memory of our founding president in a rather abusive manner, where he says that he told us to be one and we are going to be one. Watch this space, we are coming. We must ask, what is it that they don't like about us? To appreciate that, we may need to look at some of the changes that have recently taken place. My mind takes me to the port in Mombasa, because that would be the center of interest for Uganda. It takes me to the SGR, and it takes me to the secrecy, the entire mystery, or in emerging idiom opaqueness that shrouds the SGR. Who are the interested parties in this context? And are they feeling aggrieved that we are making some of these changes? And would there be better ways of having conversations between the government of Uganda and our government? I saw a rather vague Diplospeak note again circulating in social media, purporting to be from the High Commission.
It was, that was communicated, yes.
But this is naivety on stilts. Muhoozi Kainerugaba cannot take Nairobi in 2 weeks. All Nairobi needs to do is to starve Kampala of oxygen, and it will take 2 days to collapse.
Well, some of these things that we now get to understand some more, but things that definitely we can't overlook. Honorable Joash Mangi.
You know, Linda, international diplomatic etiquette does not allow ranking military officers to comment on bilateral issues. So it's shocking that an army commander of a neighboring country will comment on a bilateral issue touching on a neighboring country. To me, that is pretty much a declaration of war. And we cannot take it lightly, because this is the head of the military. Now, in military language, the only language the military understands is command, command, command. Yeah. In fact, when we were being trained in NYS, we were told, amri kwanza, there's a way they used to put it, unaitikia amri kwanza, and then you ask later. So if you're in the military and you're told, let's march to Kenya, you don't ask
why.
You march to Kenya. You march to Kenya. So when the head of the army in Uganda says that he will order his people to march to Kenya, that must be taken very seriously. Because what if he does it actually? Because the people behind him, the officers, are not allowed to question. They march. So then the worst part is that his father promotes him to a general. I don't know the system in Uganda, but in Kenya, at any one given time, we have only one general, who is the head of the armed forces, who is the head of the defense forces, on one. Now, the service commanders are either lieutenant generals or major generals. Now, in terms of the pecking order, a general can order all the other, like lieutenant or major generals to act. And in the language of military, amri ni muhimu kushinda yule ameitoa. So this man now has been promoted to a full general. I don't know how many full generals they have in Uganda. I don't think there will be more than 2. Okay, but in Kenya we have only 1. So now that means that this young man who is threatening to capture Kenya is now pretty much ahead of every military officer in Uganda. So what stops him from taking over Uganda? Through the military. So, I mean, to me, it looks like Museveni is preparing his son to take over power through the military, because as a general, he can now command the service commanders to come to him, and then give them instructions. Well, now, we are a civilian government, and Uganda, even though the Museveni came in as a military man, finally became a civilian government. In civilian governments worldwide, the military people report to a civilian authority. So this man, when he was commenting, who does he report to? And then he refers the president of Uganda as my father. So he does not see him as the president. He sees him as his father. So I want to agree with Dr. Barak Muruka that these people are so drunk with power, they see Uganda as their family ownership, family kingdom. It's a very dangerous trend, and Kenya should not take this for granted. Kenya should not take this for granted.
Let's lay the ground for you some more, and in what Dr. Barak refers to, the Ugandan government distances itself from the remarks And they say that the country's army, which he leads, can capture Nairobi. That is what he had said. And so they say, really, they are not part and parcel of this. And again, as well, in their Diplo speak, they would definitely come out to say that we are okay. We have addressed this, confirmed or affirmed by the Foreign Affairs CS nominee, that is Alfred Mutua. But the likes of Bobi Wine and the numerous tweets as well, in response to the same that we've seen, remind us, and they say, dear Kenyans, you now understand what it means to live in Uganda under General Museveni and his son, whom he gifted the highest military ranks and put him in charge of our land force. Sadly, beneath the senseless tweets lies a monster who brutalizes and tortures our people.
For
Can
fun.
we just, yes.
It's not easy. I see two things. One, these tweets, they injure, they go across or against all the rules of diplomacy and international relations. Uganda is best advised to keep their trouble there, at least if they must continue with Museveni and the son for other decades. But that was a sick joke. It was a very sad joke. That's why we never took it seriously in the first place. Because one thing the Dr. will tell you, social media is a bad place. Because you are not sure whether somebody took control of the and then they will come and say, it was not me. Then it went on. All of us thought General Muhoozi is a very calm guy. And then we were even beginning to think whether we can respect him. Suddenly, he comes out as a young prince, drunk with power, drunk with money, drunk with easy lies to the top, and suddenly he causes something which is very unnecessary. I must say unnecessary, because it's not anywhere. I mean, coming to say about 2 weeks, he reminds us of Idi Amin. That's a sick joke again that he used to have. So are we seeing it's a military thing? I think he has read so much about Idi Amin, and of course Museveni sees Uganda as a military government. Let's agree on that. He sees it as a military government, which is to be moved from one family to another. So what I want to advise Bobi Wine and Daktari is to understand that Museveni wants to hand over power to this gentleman who is young, excited, and is going to be a disaster, so that they can begin working on their country from there. I like the angle. I don't think from diplomacy lessons and nothing comes which doesn't mean something. There is no way that could be. On the first place, it's a sad joke, but looking at some of us who have studied diplomacy and international relations, there's nothing that can come out of nothing. There is something beneath. And what actually we should be concentrating on as the people in diplomacy and scientists in the international relations, what actually caused it, because nothing can happen as a joke. There must be some underneath things, some lessons. He seems to be fond of Uhuru. He seems to be liking Uhuru more than Ruto. He seems to be communicating. And then is it the policies? And so Museveni is here, and you see Museveni talks in very coded language. He throws things. You take time to know what he means. Could he have sent the young man to throw some barbs so that something can happen, and then they are caught, and then some things are ironed out? Let them understand there are better ways of doing it. I know Museveni, sometimes he thinks Ruto is too tough, too strong. He knows where he is heading to. He may not give in to some shaky deals, because there must be something beneath this. Now that it is true he did. And now about promotion, I'm not sure whether this promotion meant he is less powerful to command the army directly. I am not sure about that. That's what we are still trying to study. A way of trying to push him away from, because if that is a guy commanding the army and he's talking that way, it's a disaster. But I want to tell Ugandans, they are yet to see more drama. If that guy is going to be the next president, and he's talking about being the KDF commander of East African forces, then but in the immediate time, what the Kenyan government should be quickly thinking is what exactly Muhoozi meant. And what it impedes for this government. You see,
Dr. Barak will tell you that in the world of communication, and I stand corrected, that many would tell you they are responsible of what it is that they write or say, but not how we interpret what it is that they've written or said. And so on basis of this, perhaps he could be justified. But then again, the question would be, what does it do to the East African integration conversation that we've been having? Because then beyond Kenya, he speaks of East Africa.
Yeah, it must eventually boil down to an East African challenge. But within that context, and borrowing from my brother Dr. Mbai here, Our people say that when you see the tadpole in broad daylight, something has rattled it where it was. And here we speak in the open public space. There are spaces where government and intergovernmental affairs are transacted. It is possible that certain conversations are going on. There have been some conversations going on between our newly inaugurated president and the president of Uganda. It is possible that they have reached some kind of deadlock, or they are moving towards one, unbeknown to ourselves. And this gentleman is then sent out to make the kinds of pronouncements that he has made, as firing a warning shot that if we are not going to agree on these things that we are discussing in private, then this option of coming for you in Nairobi is on the cards. So that then starts destabilizing East Africa, because we must begin from where we recognize that Nairobi is, and Nairobi, I'm using it as a metonym, is a very significant player in East Africa, in the region generally. We are a gateway, indeed the gateway into the Great Lakes region. I spoke earlier on of starving Kampala of oxygen. It can actually happen. When Idi Amin made that noise in 1976, the taps were turned off for just a short while, and he had to tone down. We have had this kind of spat before with President Museveni in the early 90s, if memory serves me well, and Kenyans will remember the meeting that was held in a tent across the border. The one side of the tent sat the Ugandans in their space in Uganda, and on the other side sat President Moi. And President Moi had said at that time that if these Ugandan soldiers cross into Kenya again, we will now just follow them. It will be hot pursuit straight into their country, and we will push them up to wherever it is that we can push them. There were calls for wise counsel. Meanwhile, the road services and even the train services to Kampala had been shut down. And I don't know whether Kampala is spoiling for that kind of fight. The remarks that have been made by this gentleman are beyond a sick joke. This is something that this country, this government must take very seriously, with all the seriousness that it deserves, because this is declaration of war. And I do hope that somewhere within the government of Kenya, they are taking the necessary measures. We are aware that our closest point hovering around our borders just to make sure that they are secure.
They are safe.
And there are many border points.
There's no point of us delving and focusing on this much, because
these are things which they discussed in the innermost
and I mean, he says so. He
of their home before he even came out to make those incendiary remarks.
Yes, that's true. And then we let that be, as we hope that, like you rightfully put it, then the necessary government bodies.
But we need our marine forces
to be hovering around.
I was thinking, instead of making it a big issue for now, we take it. It's not easy. We begin seeing there's something. We don't take it as a joke. Nothing in diplomacy is a joke. We begin thinking these guys could be up to something. But we don't show them that we are so much, by maybe putting marines and also even talking about switching off.
Let me tell you, If they match, they will get to Emmanuel the same day.
It's how he's a neighbor.
Let me say something.
Yeah. Now I understand. Now I understand, Doctor. He's
Let me say
worried about
something,
his
Linda.
hometown.
Linda.
Come around before you leave Nairobi.
Let me say something, Linda. You know,
Where you live in Nairobi,
Kenya has a superior economy than Uganda by far. Our GDP is much, much higher. Our per capita income is much, much higher. And our military is much superior to Ugandan military, even though the Ugandan military has more experience because of fighting. Yeah. But ours is much, much, much superior. And having said that, I want to believe that we cannot allow Uganda, which in all fairness in international fora is a junior country to Kenya, to play with us. Yeah. I support what my brother Muluka is saying, that probably this time we send our military around Busia, around the, hovering around the borders. Malaba. It's about time we send a powerful message.
Malaba border.
You see, you look at what happened in what is happening in Russia and
Ukraine.
Why did Russia attack Ukraine? Because Ukraine was beginning to put their soldiers next to Russia. So Russia had to act before Ukraine will act. So it may be necessary for us to act before Uganda acts. Because as we said earlier, remember, in the military, if a general tells his soldiers that let's move to Nairobi, they will move. They might get us unawares. So we should not take it for granted. We should put our people, our military, in the Malava around there, so that when we see them coughing, we take care of them. Well put. Now, the Senate has put its house in order. It's all systems ready, and they're set to go. We have Aaron Cheruiyot, a member of the Senate, of course, as majority leader, and we have Senator Tabitha Keroche as Deputy Senate Majority, and we have Senator Boni Khalwale as the Senate Majority Whip, and Senator Lelegwe Tumesi, also Deputy Senate Majority Whip. On the other side, we have Justice Stewart Mazayo, Senate Minority Leader. We have Enoch Wambua as Deputy Senate Minority Leader, Fatuma Dulo as Senate Minority Whip, Ledama Olekina, also Deputy Senate Minority Whip. That really we can commend and say that, well, we're looking forward to see how then the Senate swings to action. But the National Assembly, Dr. Mbai. Majority versus minority. It's very, and Kenya has a way of doing stuff, things go round, make it a lot of drama. It's very Linda, the speaker says he wants up until Thursday. And he said he wants to make a reasoned judgment. Me, I will go to the point and say this. Numbers. Yes. Linda, the Constitution is more superior than all those regulations, all those laws, agreements, which cannot be found, right? I mean, but they cite very many clauses in the Constitution, in all these other legal documents that we have. Went and said, now that I signed, can I now therefore, because I signed one page, can I kindly register political parties? Can I now have the whole thing so I can have a look at it? I can go and keep a copy in my office. He was told we don't have also. Okay. Go and ask it. Go to the Secretariat of Azimio and get a copy. So what are we saying? Constitution enshrines the freedom of association. Now that is superior to all those other small laws. And you cannot fight against association. We have independent members. Kenya Kwanza simply went ahead and took them and said, can we work together? That was a win. Other people, can we work together? This issue of saying, oh, you can't leave before 2 months, after 3 months, all those are man-made rules. And I've always said consistently, I remember our lecturer of political science told us consistently, and I remember like yesterday, the biggest problem in Africa, many leaders, they make laws and change constitution to suit them for the next election, not the next generation. Yes. They went and changed some laws at night. They pushed everybody across. They were the same way they had tried to do the BBI, like pushing everyone, Now, without knowing the consequences, it's null and void. Let's go to the Constitution. People have freedom. You cannot tie. You can tie me legally, but you cannot tie emotions. You cannot tie to emotionally. You can legislate, but you cannot tie me. You cannot legislate against my emotions and my free will to associate. That to me, we are waiting. Is it tomorrow?
Is it tomorrow? We are waiting for it is going to be a day. We know, the way you know the sun will rise from the east. We are not waiting for any other shaking anything. It is to come and say, I have read this. And of course he will read for 1 hour. You know, he must show that he read some stuff at night. You know, he must quote things, quote Shakespeare if he wants, quote all those kind of things. But finally, it is Kenya Kwanza with the majority members, and they are going to take their positions. They are going to have committees working. People are getting delayed. The cabinet is out. Nobody to vet them. We are getting late in this country because of so many shenanigans. We need to move on. That to me, that's my position.
You know, great submissions from the members of parliament, citing and quoting the dictates of standing orders, most importantly, the Constitution, the Political Parties Act, the Elections Act, and all this. If it is as straight as, and as clear as day and night, why is it so hard that we have gotten to this point where then the speaker has to ask for more time to think about this and perhaps present us with lots of quotes, as Dr. would say?
Denial. If I were to use only one word, it's denial. There is a segment, and a big segment too, of this country, and the political fraternity, that is still living in denial. The last time I was on this show, I said that Azimio la Umoja, One Kenya Alliance, throughout their thinking, they had prepared for only one possible outcome, the presidential election, and that was victory. Now, when you go to war, you must know that someone will die. You can only hope that you will not be that someone, like every soldier does. That's why they go to the war front. Otherwise, they wouldn't. You know someone will die, and you hope it will not be you. But as you go, even as you hope it will not be you, you mitigate. Your family, the people you are leaving behind, you take care of certain things. You know that you could actually fail to come back. So as part of this denial, you are seeing all manner of contestation. Contestation for the sake of contestation, opposition for the sake of opposition, gerrymandering for the sake of gerrymandering, wasting time. Now, even when the president comes to your zone, your region, as in Homa Bay, you refuse to come to meet him. Instead of seeing the opportunity to coax some more development out of him, the president and his government first are obliged to develop each and every part of this country equally or equitably, regardless of whether that part of the country voted for them or not. But that he comes to see you is a good gesture. Now, the things that we are seeing in the National Assembly are an extension of that, because these people, being lawmakers, understand very clearly a number of quick things. Number one, that the Constitution is the supreme source of law in this country, and that rights that are protected within the Constitution, freedoms that are protected by the Constitution, cannot be contravened by inferior documents like shoddy agreements that have got even some pages blank. And even if all the pages were intact, by the very fact that this agreement circumscribes association, that it limits your association and even tells you that for a period of 9 months, you are going to be in prison. We are going to imprison you because you can't leave 6 months to the elections and you can't leave 3 months after the elections. That is circumscribing people's freedoms, and you cannot limit that kind of freedom. Therefore, as the Constitution itself says, that agreement is null and void to the extent of that circumscription of people's freedoms.
We are talking about seasoned politicians, Dr. Barak. We're talking about learned, people that were getting into this arrangement. And you ask yourself, that in this time and age you still could get to an arrangement without the knowledge of, if policies are there, without the knowledge of the details of the agreement, only to come later to cry foul, and in a space where we have seen how sometimes some of these agreements are flouted. The most recent was when we saw, that is the Wiper Party leader, crying foul and saying that this is the agreement that we had with Right Honorable Raila Odinga. He has not lived up to it. That really, blindly, all these members that are crying foul would get into an agreement without this knowledge, or perhaps, agree that they are in an agreement that they have not seen. Let's take a short break and then maybe come back. Look at that.
You are watching TV 47, the home of untold stories. Disability is not only limited to physical disorder, but also mental issue. From depression,
I was under depression for like 2 years.
bipolar,
Bipolar disorder is a mood disorder.
and even suicidal thoughts.
When I was just about to hang myself, a certain voice just talked to me, and I believe that was God. I tried suicide more than 6 times.
Beyond the Limit has gone beyond its limit to find answers so as to help everyone go through life with ease. Join Muthoni Maina every Saturday at 7:30 p.m. Starting this September at 8:30 p.m. on Tuesday, The Realtor brings it all to perspective. We identify a property, discuss and demonstrate the journey towards ownership.
Professionals who have integrity, and from their catalog you can easily read that these are professionals who are able to deliver.
Everywhere you go, you have to up your games. You have to go with the trends.
Untold stories.
All right, in studio, Honorable Joash Mangi, as well as Dr. Peter Mai and Dr. Barak Muluka, and on the matter of the standoff that lies at the National Assembly in relation to getting to understand who then takes the majority position and who takes the minority. And we have Emmanuel watching, says majority conversation ended at the polling station. And we have the numbers out here. I don't know what is rocket science in this whole matter. I take it from you, or I allow you a minute or less to wind it up, Dr. Barak?
Just a footnote.
Okay.
That I think the registrar of political parties was wrong in admitting an unconstitutional agreement, an agreement that circumscribes individuals' freedoms. Freedom of association, freedom to move from a party to another party without being told that you are in jail. And now we are having that mistake that she made playing up at a higher level. And we are even told that she doesn't seem to have the agreement herself. And lastly, you cited the case of Kalonzo Musyoka. Kalonzo Musyoka, it will be remembered that apart from those other old agreements that you talk about, was complaining
about this very one.
About this very one. He was saying that we just signed a blank piece of paper. We don't even know what we have signed. And then somehow they got hold of him, they coaxed him, and he got back and confirmed what he had said about himself, should he be part of the support brigade for the third time.
Then we all understand what he said.
You know, Linda, in law, there's nothing straight because law is an ass. It depends on who's pulling it. Now,
Dr. Barak is looking at you. You cannot just be that straight.
You see, here I am on the dialogue with Dr. Barak a little bit. You see, this question about freedom of choice, freedom of agreements, we are a civilian country and we are a country under the rule of law in a marriage. But yes, you'll be tied in a marriage. If you marry and you want to get out of that marriage, there's a system, there's a procedure. And so long as that marriage is still subsisting, you cannot marry another person.
Yeah, but
so the question, let me finish.
But you are not allowed.
Kwanza, one party, chap.
Alfred
Mutua. And also the other one for Northeastern.
UDM.
UDM. Tell you before the election. I don't even listen to me first. I'm saying that we have two parties here, chap
yes,
and UDM, that objected to this coalition before the election, which means as they were going for the election, their mind was clear that they are not with Azimio. They are with Kenya Kwanza, even though the agreement was signed later, post-election, but their mind was clear that they were with Kenya Kwanza. Now, on the strength of those two parties, Kenya Kwanza has majority. But I want to say this very politely. It's good to be consistent. It's not good to move up and down. If I take the case of somebody like my very good friend Ochieng of Uganda, if Ochieng of Uganda campaigned consistently using the name of Raila Amolo Odinga to win, then as soon as he wins, he moves to the other part before the 3 months expire. Let's be fair. That's not very fair. But Chap and UDM objected at the right time.
There was PAR, there was PAR as well of Kingi.
Yes, yes, even Kingi.
But was it at the right time?
They objected at the right time because they made it clear that this agreement, this purported agreement, is not and void.
But this agreement that we speak of, and what it is that the registrar of political parties would say, and what it is that Barack mentioned that they're the ones who have actually plunged us into this very space of despair, and it's the fact that it speaks of after now the election and after the process. So we look at around 90 days, which they can always wait to elapse or to lapse for them to.
Let me finish. I have not finished. Let me finish very briefly. You see, on what Barack is saying, I think that agreement, as it was ruled yesterday, is not unfortunate. Yes, unfortunate. It's not unfortunate because if parties to the agreement object to the contents, and then the registrar of parties keeps quiet, and then that agreement is already not unfortunate. It's like when you're getting married, and a question is asked, does anybody have an objection to this one being married? Then I stand up and say no. I say yes, I have an objection because this is my wife. If the priest ignores that and continues to solemnize the marriage, that marriage is not unvoid ab initio. It's the same thing I'm saying that the moment a Chap and UDM and PAR objected, they should have listened to. Because they were not listened to, that coalition agreement is not unvoid. It's nothing. So because of that, I think Kenya Kwanza has the majority. I do not know what law the speaker will use to rule otherwise. Because lastly but not least, we are looking at, the law says the majority party will be third party or coalition of parties that has more members. Now, Azimio is a coalition party. It's not a coalition of parties. It's a coalition party. So if you take the coalition parties, the parties that are formed as Azimio, it will be all those 26 parties, excluding Azimio. Because they are parties, individual parties, who are corporate members. Now, if you put them together, and then you look at this other Kenya Kwanza coalition of parties. See, that is the kind of people have not understood. That there's a difference between a coalition party and a coalition of parties. If you give it a literal interpretation, then Kenya Kwanza wins because there may be 7 or 8 parties, but they are in a coalition called Kenya Kwanza. They're in a coalition called Kenya Kwanza. But Azimio as a party.
I pity the registrar and the members who are coerced and all that to push that issue about coalition parties and all that. The situation where we were in Kenya a few months ago, there's nobody else who would have done anything. The same case BBI was thrown down their throats. That's the same way that thing was done. The same way that agreement, you ask a question, how come people, they came to a very nice, Greece and they signed stuff. It was not easy. You are told, come. Can you first sign here, the first page? By the time you're going to ask for it, nobody has it. So we were in a semi-military, some kind of dictatorship, kind of a system. We don't want to go there because we are past there. Now, 2 things. He talked about marriage. Now, suppose what you are in is not a marriage. In the first place, if what you are in is not a marriage, therefore, then living it is not an issue because it was not there. When you talk about whether they were proper members of the coalition, he asked a very good question. And that is what the judgment is all about. Yes. Was the coalition based in law? Yes. Did it break the constitution? So, and the agreement here and what we are talking here, we are saying here is this. From where we sit from a purely, and leader we are here purely from a governance system. Because about all this, the question I will ask is this. When the people were going from the word go to plan BBI 4 years ago, why had they thought about the pitfalls, about the law, about the constitution? Because there are people who want to do things because they are there. But we want here to say going forward, even if you're in power, can you allow systems to work? Can you allow systems and structures? Because if you twist them to suit you, they will also eat you up one day. So what we are saying is there was no coalition, there was no marriage. So living a marriage that was not there, there's nothing to worry about. So tomorrow we are going to have a very close chapter. Then we move to other things. We need to give this government time to put their systems and structures in place because there are so many people asking about the government. Every day, there's too much pressure. Not forgetting it's only 3 weeks. We need to give it time. This is part of the systems that are going to be there because once Parliament is working, the National Assembly and the Senate, now they can begin doing the committees. They can begin vetting the appointments from the President. What we are saying is that the kind of pressure that was there previously before the election was too much. Nobody could resist, not the register of political parties, not anybody. So we are saying again, never rush to do rules and change constitutions and laws to suit you for the election. We need rules. If they are going to be there, any law must focus on the next generation, not the next election. And
beyond the election, Dr. Barak, it is pretty common, not just in Kenya, but across the African continent. You listen to some of these lawmakers, and most of the times they will concord, or they will come up with laws that would end up being poison to them. Yes, Uganda is a classic example as well. They have talked about the age limit. They've talked about no age limit and all this. And coming back to the country, we have seen this pretty much common. I mean, just what goes into the formation of these laws? And is it always about the bigger picture, or like, Daktari would say here, it's a game of the next election, or better yet, interests? And then should Kenyans really get to trust the lawmakers to come up with laws that are instrumental towards, advancing democracy?
The rule of law is painful, it's inconvenient, and those in power do not like that. And this country has had a consistent history of those in power making instrumental variations of the law to suit their needs for the moment. And sometimes they have had to pay the price. One can talk about really very many things that are said. The president is above the law, things that made us a one-party state. There are those who forced the process of a one-party state to get into being. Remember that the road to the one-party state began with our being a de facto one-party state before we became a one-party state by law. And that among those who pushed initially for the one-party state were none other than Jaramogi Oginga Odinga himself, working with people like Tom Mboya, Charles Njonjo, Mwai Kibaki. They made sure that the opposition parties collapsed into Kanu. We moved to a situation where then Kanu turned against them, started eating them. And then we went on to a situation where they remembered, oh, we can still form another party of our own. Then you have Tom Mboya rushing to parliament to say if you defect from your party, you must go back to the electorate. A short while later, you have the same people Mboya was working with cutting his life short. Then you move on to Charles Njonjo and Mwai Kibaki, moving us now to a one-party state by law, and the same Charles Njonjo getting locked out of the politics of the country. He has no recourse to anywhere else. And you can go on and on. The entire BBI process was about self-service of that kind. And so the big lesson to be taken from this, from the debate that is now ongoing, is that laws must focus on the future generations. Where do we want to be 100 years from now? But finally, since they have been talking about marriage, you cannot be told that before you get out of that marriage, it must consistently be consummated, even against your will, because this country recognizes that there's such a thing as marital rape. That it's also true that apart from what Governor Mangi was saying, that they will ask, is there anyone who objects to these two people joined together in marriage? Even the two people at the altar are asked, do you know of any reason why you should not be joined to this person in marriage? And we had people who went to the registrar of political parties, the bans of marriage having been already broadcast, and said, we want out. FA wanted out. Sisi, chama Chap. Wanted out. And a number of others wanted out. But they were told, no, Cheng was there being mistreated, like the unwanted wife. He was being told, don't even come anywhere near where we are holding our campaigns. That Azimio ends in Awasi. From there up to the border, it is ODM. Now you cannot approbate and reprobate concurrently.
All right. But in 30 seconds.
There's something he asked concerning the MP for Uganda. It's good to give an example. He went using the name of Laila, for example, to win a seat. Now, from what I know, the policy of Kenya Kwanza is this. The president is on record saying he's going to work with all elected members, from MCA to governors, right? So, there's nothing the people of Kenya will lose, because they are citizens, they pay taxes. By association with the president, there's nothing wrong with that. What he cannot do is to go begin abusing Laila there. He's not. He's just saying, for the benefit of the people who voted for me, I'm in association, not for anything else. Not for anything else beyond service delivery. I think that's what we need to be saying. This issue of, I cannot go to receive Ruto in Homa Bay because I belong to ODM. Now, that is very cheap and narrow thinking. The president of Kenya is not just the party leader of Kenya Kwanza. He is the president of the Republic of Kenya. And Homa Bay people pay taxes. So can we grow, please? Can we outgrow some things as leaders? And we need to tell our politicians as well. I mean, can we also grow? Because our role here now as citizens is to come and tell people, excuse me, please, can you do what you are supposed to do? But please, can you pull up your socks? Can you reason as a statesman? By the time you are elected, we cannot continue like this for 5 years, running away from the president. When it comes to your praise, you have a chance to prepare your troops again, 2027, if you want the presidency. But only one person can be a president. Let's remove from that narrow thinking of political leadership and grow a bit. That way, we are going to help this nation. A president cannot be humbling himself to go and say, let me go and tell these people, look here, even if I know I was not elected here, I'm here as a president to tell you, we are going to work.
He has taken my time.
Okay, it's pathetic.
No. Remember, leader, you are the anchor. You know,
we have to close. And we have to close.
He's a governor.
So, Governor, DG, in 30 seconds,
yes,
the electorate then is asking in all this, where are we? Amidst all this jamboree, talk about the shenanigans, talk about the hula baloo, the electorate is asking, where are we?
You know, let me first say this, then I'll say that.
Yeah,
you know, what I am saying is, we are saying the same thing. It's the process that is different. What I am saying as a good lawyer, I'm saying that if that contract had been properly signed with no objections, then the members will be bound by that contract. So the question, was that contract properly signed? The answer is no, it was not. PA, UDM, and Chap objected immediately. And there was no evidence of that contract. So in all fairness, that contract doesn't exist. So Kenya Kwanza coalition is the one that exists, the one that is a majority party. So I don't want, I don't want to be misunderstood. I am saying that contracts can be voided. Right. That contract became voided immediately. There were objections. And the beautiful part of it is that they did not wait to obtain the benefit before they objected. They objected at the right time. They followed the law. Okay. So you cannot bind them to a SMEO. So in the question, where in Kenyans are asking, where are we?
In all this.
In all this, where we are is that elections were conducted. President William Samoei Ruto won. Kenya Kwanza won. And we have a government led by His Excellency President William Samoei Ruto. Some of us who have always seen him as the best leader this country will have will be vindicated. 10 years down the road, I'm telling you, Linda, this country will be, at the very minimum, a medium income country, at the very minimum. Wow. You know, in China and Malaysia, developed within 15 years, completely, from third world to first world. I think Kenya is headed there. So we need to support our president. I agree with him that the leadership of Umabwe should not avoid because Ruto is going there. They should embrace him and welcome him. This country is going to move several steps ahead in the next 10 years.
We look forward to that. Wakili and former Deputy Governor of Siaya County, Honorable Joash Mahangi, thank you so much. Dr. Peter Mbai, governance expert, as well as communications advisor, Dr. Barak Muluka. Asanteni sana. Thank you. We shift gears to a different conversation after this break.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You are watching TV 47. The home of untold stories.
As a government-sponsored student, joining Mount Kenya University was the best decision.